All right, today we're going to tackle a pretty sobering truth in the trading world. Think of it like a rule that acts as a gatekeeper, separating the very few who actually succeed from the many, many who don't. Honestly, it's a reality check that every single aspiring trader needs to hear before they even think about clicking that buy button.
So, let me ask you something straight up. Do you think trading is some kind of easy way to get rich quick? I mean, it's a super common idea, right? We all hear those stories of overnight millionaires. But the reality? Well, for most people, it's dramatically different.
And this number right here, this is why. 90%. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the figure you hear all the time for the percentage of new traders who, well, ultimately fail. It's a staggering number, one that should make anyone stop and think. But where does this number even come from? Well, it's actually part of a really famous, or maybe infamous, saying in the trading world.
And that brings us right to our first section, the trader's sobering rule. Seriously, this is the warning shot that every single person thinking about trading needs to hear. So here it is, the 90-90-90 rule. It's a saying you hear all over the place in trading circles. And man, it lays out a brutal timeline. The idea is this: 90% of new traders lose 90% of their money, all within the first 90 days. Now, this isn't some scientific law, right? It's more of a critical warning.
Let's actually break that down, because each part of that is a gut punch. First, you've got a massive failure rate. We're talking 9 out of 10 traders just don't make it. Second, the losses aren't small. They're catastrophic. We're talking wiping out 90% of your starting money. And third, and this might be the craziest part, this whole collapse happens so fast, all within the first 3 months. Just, wow. Let that sink in.
Okay, so I do need to be clear here. This isn't some peer-reviewed, hardcore scientific statistic. You're not going to find it published in an academic paper. A better way to think about it is like wisdom. It's an observation passed down through the trading community that just perfectly and pretty brutally illustrates how tough this game really is.
So knowing the rule is one thing, but figuring out why it happens, that's the real key to actually avoiding it. And that brings us to our next part, anatomy of a failure. Let's pop the hood and see what's really going on.
Yeah, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, if the failure rate is that high, there have to be some common mistakes, some classic traps that almost everyone falls into. So what are they? What's fascinating is how all these different reasons feed into each other. It's like a perfect storm of failure. We see 4 big culprits that show up again and again: making emotional decisions, terrible risk management, just a flat-out lack of education, and of course, a ton of overconfidence. And trust me, they are all tangled up together.
So let's walk through that downward spiral. It almost always starts with a lack of education, right? Somebody jumps in, treating the market like it's a casino. That ignorance immediately leads to awful risk management, betting way too much on one sure thing. And then the psychological trap snapshot. A trade goes bad, and boom, you're revenge trading, trying to win it all back. Or a trade goes well, and suddenly you feel invincible, you get greedy. It's just this toxic cocktail of fear, greed, and overconfidence, the total opposite of a real strategy.
Okay, that's enough of the doom and gloom. Let's completely flip the script and talk about the 10%. How do they succeed? Because this is where the real lessons are.
And this right here just lays out the difference perfectly. It's a night and day mindset shift. See, the 90% are always looking for certainty, for that one hot tip, that guaranteed win. But the 10%? They live in a world of probabilities. They know they're going to have losing trades, so they manage their risk like their life depends on it. The key takeaway is this: the 10% treat trading like a serious business with a real plan. The other 90%? They're just buying a lottery ticket.
So, the big question is, how do you get into that 10%? Well, that brings us to our final section, your winning playbook. Let's talk about how to build a real foundation for success.
Okay, here are the 5 key steps. Number 1, you need a trading plan. And I don't mean a vague idea in your head. I mean a written document with hard rules for when to get in, when to get out, and how much to risk. 2, discipline. This just means sticking to that plan, even when it feels boring. 3, never ever stop learning. The market is constantly changing. 4, risk management. This is your shield. A really common rule of thumb is to never risk more than, say, 1 or 2% of your whole account on a single trade. And finally, number 5, the big one. You have to manage your emotions. You've got to learn to recognize when you're feeling greedy or scared and have the strength to just step away.
Look, if there's only one thing you remember from all this, let it be this right here. The successful trader is a disciplined strategist, not an emotional gambler. It's not about getting lucky, it's about making smart, calculated decisions time and time again.